All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Journey into Satanism Part 6. Um, Satanism versus Witchcraft. Today, I'd like to discuss the differences between Satanism and witchcraft in general. Um, to begin this, I'd like to just state that in some cases, they are considered one and the same, whereas in other cases, it is completely different. They're two different things. And I know that sounds kind of hypocritical, kind of like a state of duality. So I'm going to be breaking this down for you, and I'd like you to pay attention because the fact that a lot of people lately have been coming to me, and they just want to know. They want me to teach them so they can either sell their souls to the devil or they can become part of the Illuminati. Now, as stated in part one, either part one or part two, I can't remember which offhand, I stated that neither one of these is accurate. Um, Satanism has nothing to do with the Illuminati. Um, the Illuminati is nothing more than a Hollywood produced ideal. It is a thought form, nothing more. Whereas Satanism is considered devil worship. It is worshiping demons and angels. The jinn, making deals with them, making pacts with them, be it a blood pact with Mephistopheles, a infernal pact with Lucifer's Raphael, the pact maker and scribe, to a dark pact with any of the high-ranking lords, such as the kings, princes, marquis, dukes, and such like that. A lot of people, when they make a deal, they think they want to sell their soul. But there's a difference between witchcraft, pacts and witchcraft, and that of Satanism. In Satanism, making a pact with a demon is basically aligning yourself with the forces of darkness. You are not necessarily giving yourself over to Satan himself, which is a Hebrew term for opposer. The opposer, whereas the accuser, whereas in Islamic and Judaism, the overall meaning is he who opposes. Okay, so it's not about selling your soul to that particular being. The Christian version of Satan, which is what they'll lead you to believe, is that when you make a pact with Satan, you are in fact giving your soul to Satan. Much of the belief in demonic possession is that you're signing your body over to the demons, especially if you open yourself up to necromancy, if you, to divination such as chiromancy, you know, tarot card readings, Ouija boards, and runes. You're doing seances and stuff like that. You're opening yourself up to these beings, and you'll lose your soul due to being letting a demon in. This is done out of fear. This is what the church does to discriminate against an enemy, so that they are viewed as bad guys. If they are viewed as how should I say this, evil. Okay. And the world buys into it because they think that, oh, the church is right, whereas other people think it's cool and it's a way to rebel against one's family, against the church. So therefore they get into the thought form that, well, it's all about heavy metal music, it's all about selling your soul to the devil. I'm dressed in black, I have an inverted cross. I've got an inverted pentagram. Look at me. I'm an evil. I'm bad, 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 bad. Satanism has nothing to do with this. Satanism, as I've said, is about responsibility. It is a path of self-maturity, self-growth. It is about you and as the individual, and not the concerned with the herd conformity. So when people make a pact with a demon or with a um, a demonic lord such as Azazel, okay, the teacher of alchemy, who taught women how to paint their faces in the art of seduction, to Zaniel, the teacher of witchcraft, Emma Iman, the teacher and infernal twin flame to Lucifer. You got so many different beings out there from various different traditions of demonology, and angelology, that people don't, they tend to go with the Christian viewpoint of all these beings are just Satan, or the Luciferian viewpoint of being a mask that can be utilized within any branch of your life, be it the darker aspect. You want to go out and become a serial killer, therefore it's the darker aspects. It's of Satan. Whereas intellectuals would go out and go, well, I'm going to utilize the mask of Lucifer, the bearer of light and truth. Okay, these are just a couple of examples, and this train of thought is actually traced back to the late '80s, early '90s, when the Satanic Panic started happening and took place, which was the modern day witch hunt. The burning trials, the witch trials, and stuff such like that. And what's interesting here to note is that the Church of Satan, when it was founded, was a big splash. It was a big gimmick. Anton Zandalevay shaved his head and declared himself a Satanist, opened the doors to the first satanic church above ground. And he even stated that he believed in the devil. He believed in demons. And that he actually stated in a YouTube interview with Bob Larson that, no less, the exorcist, Bob Larson, yeah, that's the one, that he is one of the true worshipers of the highest infallible king of hell, meaning Satan. So now that we have all these atheists out there and they're going, well, I'm an atheist, Satanist. There is no heaven, there is no hell, there is only me, I am my own God. Well, guess what? You're mistaken. Anton was not an atheist. He was a devil worshiper. It wasn't until the early 70s, around 1974, that a shift took place. And this was mostly due to some of the hierarchy of the Church of Satan that was becoming agnostics. And then they later became atheistic through Peter H. Gilmore. Now, what's interesting to note here is that even in the Satanic Bible, which was written by Anton Zandalevay, clearly states that Satan is the king of the world. In the Enochian keys that he put forth, clearly states, be friendly unto me, for I am the true worshiper of the king, of the highest infallible king of hell, meaning Satan. And his rituals, who is the first person that he always contacts? Satan. Then Lucifer, Belial, and then Leviathan. Now, throughout history, out of all four of those, Satan's history only goes back to the 10th century, where he is known as a Grigori. The first mention of him is in the Old Testament of the Bible, and he's actually compared to a Grigori, one of the first hierarchies of angels, a warrior class known as the Watchers. And his job was to report to Jehovah. And basically in Job chapter 1, this is where he physically made his first appearance as the accuser. And he strolled into the kingdom and he was asked, hey, where the hell have you been? And he said, oh, here and there, down under, whatever. And then he goes in and says, hey, mankind is not living right for you. And of course, God sat there yet again and said, hey, have you considered my humble servant Job? Well, you can do whatever the hell you want to him, but don't kill him. Well, and then we all know how that story played out. Well, the thing is that so many people think that Satan is evil, and this is due to the church's propaganda. Lucifer, on the other hand, goes all the way back to ancient Roman times, where he's associated with Venus. He's associated in Babylonian and Mesopotamian aspects, the Greco-Greek era, which is interesting enough because depending on which region you're in, he's associated with the solstices and the equinoxes, the very first of them, where he was in the Necromyicon, the journey that the Mad Arab took, was after the rainy season, which is the time of Aquarius, okay, which is January and February, the rainy seasons in that region, okay, around the 15th to the 18th. And it said that he began his journey after that, and he went through Mesopotamia, Babylonia, down into the Roman regions of Italy. And he learned from mages and sages and everything, and he came across this philosophy, and he began creating, learning from these deities, such as Tiamat, the dragon of chaos. But if you actually break it down, you can actually see where it originated from. But once you get into the Roman aspects, Lucifer is known as son of the morning, which is the morning star is Venus. So when you look into this, the Venus is the morning star. And again, when we go back into the Babylonians and the Sumerians and the Mesopotamians, and ancient Aramaic, Arabic, Hebrew, Judaism, even Babylonian and Syriac languages, they have different meanings, different interpretations. And one of these is the first solstice, coming forth after it represents the spring equinox or the spring solstice, the changing of the tides, the changing of the seasons. And there's a big story behind that, and I'd recommend that you go take a look at it. It's between pages 10 or 7 and 10, I should say. I recommend going all the way up to page 12 myself, and Simon's Necromyicon, and you can actually break it down and do your own research. Take the words, and you can actually see how the first gods of Nana and Inanna came into being, how the association with the equinoxes came to be, and where Lucifer is derived from, and how he came into being. And we know that in the Bible, he supposedly fell from the heavens like a ball of fire. But when you go into Mesopotamian mythology, we got the Greek Titan, or the Greek god known as Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind, and was sentenced to be chained to one side of a mountain for all eternity, where his liver is eaten by vultures, and then it magically reappears, and the torment begins all over again. So you can see where all this comes into play. And then you got Astarte and Azazel and the Watcher Angels making the deals with Shemyaza and a much older demon known as Yukan and stuff like that. And from the Book of Enoch, and you can go into all this stuff. So, I mean, making deals and making pacts with these beings goes back over 2,000 years. It actually goes back about 7,000 years, to be precise, even further back. I mean, when you get into the Pharaoh's work, for an example, demonology, Satanism and demonolatry, you can actually see where certain areas in the regions of the world has different viewpoints of the devil. of Satanism or some form of Satanism. For an example, you have Egyptian, Greek, Middle Eastern, and European traditions that all have the elder gods versus the minor gods, such as Ra versus Set, the Egyptian sun god versus the Egyptian devil. When you get into Norse mythology, you have Odin versus Hel, or the goddess of the underworld, the land of the dead. You have Loki, which is actually the devil in Norse mythology because he's the god of mischief. In Mesopotamian, you have Mephistopheles. So I mean, and then you have Tiamat in Babylonian. So I mean, and then you have Hebrew Satan. You have Roman Lucifer, and so forth. So you can see where good and evil is played throughout the centuries, and just about every pantheon you can get your hands on. But then you have witchcraft, which is something completely different. Witchcraft is based off elemental changes. It's based off nature. It's considered to be a nature a religion of nature, and there are two different types of pacts that you can do there. Whereas in Satanism, you're actually physically making a pact and transferring you're swearing allegiance to a specific side or a specific demon or angel. Whereas in witchcraft, you're just forming a business relationship with these beings. And they're two different types of beings, and that two different types of pacts. And I'm not the only one who's actually discussed this, and taught on this either. It's in one hand, in witchcraft, you're calling on the forces of nature, where, say for example, the recommendation of hell, which would be a bonfire or what, a fire, a place of fire, a pit of fire. Brimstone would be like volcanic, so therefore it'd be the nature of the elemental fire sign, the alchemical symbol for fire, which would be associated with Lucifer or Tiamat, even a force of darkness. I mean, even Belial, is associated with the sons and daughters of darkness because he's the leader of the sons of darkness, in the scroll of Amram. That's tied in with the scroll, the Dead Sea Scrolls, going all the way back to Sanskrit. And then you have his various different meanings, he who has no master, worthless one, the dark one, he was born evil, therefore, and he was born like third after Satan, in angelology and demonology. So, I mean, you have to know where these demons come from, where these angels come from, and you have to know the region of the world. And I think what screws up a lot of people, and this actually has come down because I know a few people who are confused because Dante has his own hierarchy of demons. You have different classifications of demons, like the Munich manuscripts has a hierarchy of demons. The Black Raven has theirs, the Dictionary Infernal has theirs, and going all the way throughout just about every hierarchy, going back to the Clavicle of Solomon or the Constitution of Pope Honorius. The Grimoire of Armadale. I mean, all of these grimoires have their own hierarchies, different names. For an example, and the Clavicle of Solomon, if we go through Peterson's work, and the Grimoire of Vernum, he speaks of the top three individuals being Lucifer, Beelzebub, Lord of Flies, and most of all, Astaroth, the Grand Duke. And then when you get into the true black magic, he comes down with Sargat being, the third, in place of Astaroth. And then when you get into the Secrets of Solomon, book, you have Lucifer, Beelzebub, and then Alistair. Okay, Alistair with an E, not an A. So I mean, right there, you're given three different names of three different of the members of the hierarchy. And so I mean, this is different from say in Satanism, you have Satan, Lucifer, Belial, and Leviathan in the Satanic Bible. Even the demonic Bible by Turks Tuzej has those same four. And so you can see where each hierarchy is different, and there's a lot of confusion surrounding this. I mean, for example, Robert Fries, Reverend Robert Fries, founder of both the Church of Leviathan and that of the traditional Church of Satan, he basically equips, how should I say this, Tiamat, the dragon of chaos, as being the goddess of the underworld, the true Satan, and he considers her to be the oldest being. Well, the first mention of Tiamat is back in the late 10th century, and is not spoken of outside of the Mad Arab's Necromaicon, or that of the Necromaicon by Simon. Okay, so you really have to know what you're talking on, and where the regions are where these beings were created or worshipped, for that matter. I mean, for an example, when we go into Babylonian mythology, Tiamat is the dragon of chaos in Babylonian. Much like Moloch is known as the prince of the Valley of Tears. He's the keeper of burned souls. Basically humans and animal sacrificing was done at the Mount Hinnom in a big giant furnace, which was the representation of his kingdom. The gateway into his kingdom. So again, you're seeing a whole different translation here of the hierarchy of demons and angels. And when we get into the Greek terminology of daemon, you have the daemon, which is beneficial to humans, which would be classified as angels or angelic beings. Whereas the cocodaemon is considered baneful, harmful, and associated with demons. And then you got the different classifications of jinn. You have jinn with a, you have genie, jinn, dead jinn. Depending, ranging from Egyptian to Middle Eastern terminology when it comes to jinn magic and sorcery and dealing with them. And even Belial is considered to be a part of the infernal jinn. So I mean, according to Turk Suzij. Now, as for Tiamat, there's actually a couple of different classifications. One says she's the mother of all demons. One story said that she was slain by her son or grandson, third generation, Marduk, the soldier of light, master of the 9 celestial realms. Whereas another story goes that God feared that if Leviathan and Tiamat bred and had offspring, that mankind's days would be numbered and limited, and therefore he slaughtered Tiamat and made the earth out of her hide. Now, in Donald Tyson's work of the Necromaicon, this is a whole different viewpoint. Okay, it was said that one of the gods basically raped the goddess of the mad god, Ahura Mazda, his daughter, the princess, and out of guilt and sadness and sorrow and pain, she flung herself out into the empty, the wastelands, the abyss. And by the time they found her, there was tiny little. She was wrapped up in a big ball, and the organisms were walking on her skin. You know, meaning mankind, and you have two different factions, that of light and that of darkness, doing battle on a grand cosmic scale. And then you have this little vacuum of space, which is right there where we call our little nexus, our little corner of the universe. So right there's a whole nother view of good and evil, and angels versus demons. I mean, when we look at Lucifer, for an example, in the Bible, Isaiah 14:12, he is cast out of heaven, and it said that how thou hast fallen, Lucifer, son of the morning. Okay, and it goes on to say that he wanted his own throne to be set higher than Jehovah. Okay, whereas in the Quran, Iblis chose to leave heaven because he was a being created of fire and clay, and he didn't want to bow down and be submissive to a man of clay. Okay, of water and clay and stuff. So you're seeing different variations depending on the region and the pantheon, the style of traditions, of the magical traditions of supernatural spiritualism and magic. Okay, necromancy is considered to be the most deadliest of all these 7 forbidden arts. Okay, but yet it's associated with vampirism, it's associated with blood sorcery, it's associated with black magic, chiromancy, it's also mistaken for chiromancy, and which is spiritual conjurations. So again, you have to look at and do your homework to tell the difference between devil worship and that of witchcraft. Because witchcraft, even though it deals with elementals, can be classified as Lucifer's mood swings, or that of Beelzebub or Pazuzu. Pazuzu is the lord of the grasshoppers, lord of the harvest, whereas Beelzebub is known as the lord of the flies. He is the lord of the dung. As low as he's considered to be so low that he's equal with dung. The dung beetle. And he's actually the founder of the Order of the Fly. And what's interesting to note here is not only are these beings able to be conjured up and made pacts with, but you can call them through their elemental passages. Okay, for an example, Beelzebub and Pazuzu are the elemental of air. They are lords of the air because of their wings. They're lord of the fly, lord of the grasshopper. So therefore, they'd be associated with air, much in the same way as that of Lucifer, the bearer of light. Satan, Azazel, Samael, the venom, that of say Belial, would be classified fire because of the south, cardinal direction of the south, because of their venom and their toxic ways. And then you have that of the earth of Astaroth, Diana, Kununos, Bach, Supe, lords of the dead, Anubis and such, lords of the dead. They're considered magics. Their association with the natural forces, of the 4 base elements of air, fire, water, and earth, and the 5th making up spirit. So again, we're going right back into the witch's creed, the witch's pyramid. So right there, you're seeing how witchcraft and Satanism are combined, but you're also seeing the differences between them and how they're two different factions. Now, in both factions, you can do pacts. You can make pacts. In witchcraft, when you make a pact with a demon or an angel or a jinn, you are basically creating a business proposition with them. Whereas in Satanism, it's basically considered that you're aligning yourself with the forces of darkness. Okay, you're making that deal. You're basically selling your soul to that being, to Satan, into the demons. And this is a common mistake because Satanism is more about the individual rather than the herd conformity. When one makes a deal with a demon, it is basically aligning yourself with that demon. You're not selling your soul to that demon. And that's one of the reasons why so many of these third world wannabe practitioners come to you, and they're smart enough to get on Facebook. They're smart enough to set up Facebook. They know how to operate the Google and all that stuff, but yet they lack the knowledge of Google. And looking up these things such as pacts with demons, demonic pacts, different style pacts. What is Satanism? How many denominations of Satanism are there? Okay. And then they'll skip over that and they'll just come to you and say, hey, how do I join Satan to become part of the Illuminati? And it's like, Satanism has nothing to do with the Illuminati, you moron. And so then they'll turn around and say, well, how do I join Satan? Become a Satanist to get to know Satan so I can sell my soul to the Illuminati. And it's like, that's what the block button's for at that point, because they're not interested in learning. They're not interested in growing, which is what Satanism is about. It is about self-growth. It is about evolution. It is about becoming a living God. It is about becoming more than human. Witchcraft, on the other hand, is working with the elements, calling upon these beings to making a business proposition, having a contract with them where you can lay out what you expect them to do and what they expect for you to do. Okay. For an example, giving offerings of blood every so often. It is a sacrifice that we make for them. We feed them. And this tradition is in just about everything from Aztec to Druidism to Voodoo, Hoodoo, Santeria, Palo Mayombe, you name it. It's there dating back centuries. Okay. I'm talking going back all the way back to ancient biblical times. I'm talking Zoroastrianism, pre-Christian times. I'm talking before Zoroastrianism, going back 7,000 years. You're going to see the same thing of sacrifices. You're going to see the same thing of feeding the gods, virgin sacrifices to animal sacrifices. You go into the Bible and you go underneath the book of the law, known as the book of Leviticus. You see what is known as the burnt offerings or the sin offerings and how they sacrifice animals. Okay, but nobody dares question in the church. No, wouldn't have the balls to do that. But everything else is illegal. It's illegal for anyone else to do this. Okay? So again, you have to know your history. You have to know the difference between witchcraft and that of demonic sorcery, such as Satanism, satanic magic. All right? Satanic magic is about communing with these beings, learning from them, growing. They will teach you to a point, and then they will sever that umbilical cord, and you will have to take it from there. Whereas with witchcraft, you're just working alongside them on a day-to-day basis as equals. You've made that pact of where they'll help you change things in your life for the better or that of your clients. Okay, they'll share knowledge. They will grow. They'll help you grow and mature. So you can see where witchcraft and Satanism are two different things, but you also see where they are similar in nature. So when you get into the elementals, when you get into witchcraft and you start going into other branches of practice, of religious commandments, you're going to learn and you're going to grow. You're going to end up shrinking your altar down. You're going to be growing your altar. Okay, you're going to be going into aspects of seeing where other people are coming from, where other traditions are coming from. You're going to be learning about the Ugan, the Loa, be it the LWA or the, say for an example, the the Loa, spelling of the Loa. Okay, you're going to be getting into demonology and angelology, and you're going to see where they're good and where they're evil, where some are beneficial and some are evil. You're going to learn how to do evocations and invocations. Okay, how to summon them through the ancient necromancia path workings in cemeteries, which you don't really have to be in cemeteries to do. You can do this in the middle of the woods. You can do this in a room, like a bedroom that's type setting where it's set up specifically for ritualized practice for both ceremonial or ritual settings. Okay, you're going to be getting into the histories, the mythologies, and you're going to go back and back and back until you get to the purest sense. But you're also not limiting yourself to any one style, tradition, or form. This is what Satanism is about. It's about growing and maturing. It's the same thing as witchcraft. There's no one style, tradition, or form that is correct. They're just building on each other and learning from each other. When we look at the old grimoires, we're seeing how the Grand Grimoire and the Grand Grimoire Red Dragon are basically the same book. It's the same exact book, just two different eras of it. Whereas the grimoire of, the Constitution of Pope Honorius is different from the Clavicle of Solomon. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know the differences, but also the similarities. Now, I was doing a video before I did this one in a Facebook group, and a young lady got in there, and she says, "This is why we need to get, come together as a single group and get away from the ignorance and stuff." And it's true, because this is one of the reasons I got away from all the covens and stuff, is because once you get into a coven, then you get that closed-mindedness and you get into cults. It becomes a cult at that time, not the occult, but a cult. And what's interesting to note here is if you try to step outside of what they're teaching or educating you on within that group, then you're labeled, you're an outlaw, you're labeled a heretic. You're a bad guy and shunned. You're called a warlock, and therefore you're evil. Whereas if they actually understood where the term warlock actually came from and is derived from, then they wouldn't be doing that, because a warlock is a male practitioner of the arts, and they really don't understand this stuff. So you really have to delve into this stuff and get in there. Sick here. Some Scraper Heads 45. I just definitely noticed this here. Let me see if I can bring this thing over. Live chat. Let me see here. I think this thing just went over a little further here than it needed to be. Just out of coincidence, I just saw this. So I do apologize, Scraper. I did not notice it before. So I do apologize that you said something here. There we go. All right, I got it moved over here. So he says, "Hey, dude." Hey, Scraper. So, anyways, yeah, all I saw was Scraper with HEA. That was all I saw. It looked like I was trying to figure out what it was, so I'm trying to move this thing over so I could see it. So now it's over, so I can actually see it. And but anyways, as I was saying, witchcraft is completely different from Satanism, but they can go hand in hand. Every religious tradition that's out there can go hand in hand with each other. It's only when you sit there and you combine it and limit it. That's fine, Scraper. I mean, that's what I'm here for. That's why this is a live video, so that we can interact and you can say, you can ask questions, and You can get answers in real time. And if I have the answers, I'll give them to you. But if I don't, I'll tell you. So, but anyways, so yeah, I mean, every practice is derived from somewhere. Like all these other practices, like Santa Morte, La Santa Morte, Quimbanda, Ambanda, Palo Mayumbi, Voodoo, Hoodoo. These are even Kimbanda. You know, um, all these in Bulgaria, all these practices go all the way back to the Yoruba people of Africa, and they came down through the slave trade and all that stuff, all the way through the English channels down into South America and all the way up into North America, where they're heavily practiced today. And I mean, it's not just this; it's also sacrifices and stuff like that too. So I mean, you some tie it in with criminal activities, where others, actually go out and learn the real practices. The first thing you want to do, Scraper, is get rid of the fear aspect. Literally, the fear is actually derived from how you were brought up with Christianity. Okay, the Christian view is you need to fear Satan because he's a murderer. Um, he only wants to lead you into ruin. He wants to lead you into death. Okay, and this is mostly due to their propaganda of God's the only way, but you can't do it on your own. Okay, Satan and Satanism, on the other hand, along with demonolatry, these beings are trying to teach you and guide you into individualism. They're trying to teach you how to be the same representation of Belial, he who has no master, he who is the master. Okay, and basically take charge of your own life. And that's something that they don't want. They want slaves. They want drones, people who will eat up their every word. And if you don't do it that way and live your life the way they want you to, then you are considered a devil worshiper and of Satan. You are a heretic and need to be destroyed, shunned, and everything in between. So the thing you want to do is, first of all, get rid of the fear, get rid of that right-winged falsicity, train of thought. If you want to get into demonolatry and get into contacting Clonic, okay, I will tell you, Clonic is one of the best demons out there. Bar is another one that is right out there. They've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom that they can share with you. But you have to have that courage to go out and actually do it. Okay, it's one thing to do. How should I say this? It's one thing to sit there and do your research. Okay, but it's something completely different to actually step into a circle of empowerment and actually call forth these beings within a form of either invocation or evocation, depending if you want them to come into yourself or do you want them to come into a circle of empowerment, like say the triangle of evocation, for an example. Okay, when we look at demons, most times when you look at and you hear the term demon, you automatically flash back to the Greek term daemon. Daemon would be classified as an angel, someone that is beneficial to the practitioner, to mankind. Whereas a cocodemon is considered a demon, someone who works for Satan, somebody who is harmful or baneful to the practitioner. Okay. Bodis is a low-ranking being. You really don't want to go with a low-ranking being, even though that Bodis is one of the 72 goetic demons that was brought forth and supposedly conquered by Solomon the king. Okay, this goes back into Solomantic practices. When we look at the 72 goetic demons, for an example, there are different ranking systems. Bodis is one of the lowest ranking members of that was ever summoned by King Solomon. Okay. if you want to get up into the hierarchy, I would recommend getting into, say, for an example, Astaroth. Okay, Astaroth will work with just about anybody. And Bodis is pretty chilled. He really is. He's low key. He's very humble, but he's also very laid back. At least in my experience. I mean, in my experience, you come across two different types, sometimes three. For an example, Bodis is laid back. He's kind of calm, reflective, kind of level-headed. He's fair. Whereas, say, for an example, let's go with let's go with let's go with a Dreamalek for an example. Okay, a Dreamalek is one of those destructive demons. Very hostile towards the practitioner. He's impatient. He's temperamental. Okay. And then you have, say, for an example, Astaroth, which is kind of a combination of both. In my experience, Astaroth, who happens to be my patron, by the way, is very low key. He's one of the top ranking beings of the underworld. He's underneath, he's third in command. He's a Grand Duke. The only thing that you want to make sure to have is a silver ring to hold on your middle finger and hold it up. You can either have it on your ring finger or your middle finger and hold it to your cheek, so that you protect yourself from his breath. Because of the fact that his breath is like 1,000 daggers that will rip your flesh to shreds, especially if you're in the spiritual or the nexus, the spiritual realm, communing with him. It's there's been a couple others that have been associated with the same mythology of Astaroth. Emma Iman, for an example, is one of them, where it says his breath is so bad that you have to have a magical protection ring. Okay, but you're welcome, Scraper. But yeah, so you really want to do your own research into these demons. You want to do a lot of research. You want to find their strengths, their weaknesses, but most importantly, you want to know the mythology behind them. And a lot of the demons have different spellings to their name, depending on the region and the era, the time frame of where they were worshipped. Okay, so I mean, you consider you have Lilith too, Lilith, Lilin, um, for an example. That's just on Lilith. You have Astaroth, Astaroth, Astaroth. Okay, Belial, Belial. Okay, Belith. Okay, sometimes Balaam is spelled with Balam or Balam. Okay, Balaam. Okay, so you have to look at the spelling, but also the region. You have to know what they're about. Okay, but you also know what kind of system they're in. For magic. And then you can decide whether to do you want to do an invocation or do you want to do an evocation, because each one is different. An invocation is something where you can bring a being into a magical symbol, like, say, triangle of evocation, where while you're standing in a circle of protection, or an evocation where you bring them physically into yourself and you share your body with them. You allow them to have complete access to your body where they can speak through you. This is where a lot of the automatic writing comes from. It's where the term possession or spiritual possession comes from. This is where a lot of exorcists and demonolators will sit there and tell you, Um, how long? It depends when you're comfortable, because when you become comfortable enough that you and you alone are the only one who's capable of knowing when you're ready to move on to the next stage of your career. For an example, as a neophyte, as a an acolyte, you're at the beginning stages of your workings. Okay. So, what I would personally recommend is that you do the research on the beings that you're interested in, or that speak to you. Okay, learn what they're about, who they are, what references are they discussed in. Okay, and once you felt like you've done enough research, okay, I would recommend doing research and studying these beings for at least no more than three months. No, no less than 3 months. No more than a year. Okay. Work with them, build up a relationship with them, especially if you start calling out to them. Give them offerings. But leave yourself open so that you're able to commune with them. Now, you also want to make sure that you pay attention to your surroundings, because they can commune with you in different um, methods. Now, you mentioned you have a candle, okay, a Belial candle. All right, pay attention to the flame. Much in the same way as a pendulum swings, you can see the same exact thing with the candle flame itself. Okay, left means yes, no means right. Back and forth flickering means maybe. You know, type thing. You can interpret the candle in the same fashion. Okay, especially if you start asking questions. But leave yourself open. Sometimes the temperature in the room, your inner sanctum, your sanctuary, will either become hotter or it'll become colder, depending on the spirit that you're calling. In my personal experience, working with the beings that I work with, my altar chamber has been described as an inferno. It's like being in a middle of a boiler with flame all around you. Okay, it is that hot. It's like being in a Native American sweat lodge. It gets that hot. Okay. Whereas I've been in there and I've called on certain beings, and the temperature literally drops where you end up getting a shiver up your spine. Okay. These are just indicators that they're there. Okay, that they're listening, that you've made contact. It doesn't mean that they're going to show themselves to you. Okay. Working with Zaniel, for an example, it took me about 3 to 4 years before he even made contact with me. And I'm not joking. This is every day submitting myself, just pushing and pushing and pushing and experimenting with different channelings, different rituals, different methods of offerings before he even began to even commune with me. Because he wanted to see how far I was willing to go before he shared what he had to offer with me. All right. Um, did you take notes? Do you have a journal? Okay. What I would recommend is having a magical journal with you, that you can actually write down your thoughts and your feelings and what you felt during it. Okay. Did the pressure increase? Did you feel like you were being watched? You know, did the temperature in the sanctuary or the altar room go up or down? Did it get hotter? Did it get cooler? Did it stay the same? Did you start hearing noises when you're the only one in the household? In the place, right then and there. These are things that you want to pay attention to, but also you want to take a look at what's around you. The divination tools, such as the scrying mirror, the scrying bowl, the crystal ball, the flame on the candle. Say for example, if you have a pendulum, something that what do they call those? The forks, for an example, that necromancers use to determine spiritual energies. Okay, the um, the magnetic factor, if you wish. Okay, pay attention to these things, and sometimes you'll get an image, sometimes you'll get a feeling, sometimes you can ask questions to get an answer, depending on which way the candle or the pendulum flows. Okay, sometimes you'll get an image in the water or the crystal ball or even in the scrying mirror. Okay, other times you'll hear a voice. I mean, I sat there one day, I was the only one in the apartment, and I sat there in my altar room, and I got so in depth with my breathing, and I've lowered it so much, almost to maybe 1 or 2 heartbeats per minute, and to the point where I was almost dead. I wasn't really breathing. I wasn't doing much. I was just sitting there, just contemplating and letting myself drift into the darkness. And all of a sudden, I heard the voice just behind my left ear. And keep in mind, I had I was in full ritual robe. Okay, I'm talking my ritual robes. I had the hood up, the whole king of boodle, and right behind my left ear, like it was just somebody just walked right up behind you and just whispered in your ear and said, "Bleed on the altar. Bleed on the altar." That's all I heard. And I mean, I immediately turned, like, what the fuck, It was just like that because it came out of nowhere and it freaked me right out. But especially since I realized, I'm the only one in this house. I'm the only one in my apartment outside of a cat. And we all know cats don't talk outside of being their average mouthy, you know, vocals. And yes, I'm talking about you, Bella. My familiar's on the couch at the moment. But anyways, you see my point. They can communicate with you in a million different ways. Sometimes they'll give you bits and pieces. So each time you go into your altar room and you get into this trance, like say take 5-10 minutes and work on your breathing, get into a meditative state. And blood is important. It actually is a way of being an offering to give back to them, but it's also a method of conjuring them up, okay, to summoning them. For an example, Sorceress Cagliostro, the necromancer, in her works, the Blood Sorcery Bible, Volume 1 and 2, talks a lot about blood sorcery being a form of magnetics. It's the essence between life and death, where you can utilize blood and smear it across the black scrying mirror to allow yourself to go into the spiritual nexus, the spiritual void, and become one with the dead. But you don't want them to know that you're still part of the living, because then they'll attack you because you don't belong there, because you are alive. Okay. Whereas in necromancy in old times, necromancy is very painful. It's a very painful art because of the death energies, the negative energies, the death essences, which pay a heavy toll on the practitioner. And it wasn't until around the 15th century that it became associated with blood sorcery, because blood was able to stave off or ward off the harmful effects of the baneful magics that are associated with necromancy. So blood is very, very important within any form of ritual, especially spiritual conjuration. Okay. When you're dealing with demons, you always want to make sure that you have that offering there that you give back. Um, Personally, if you're not afraid of pain, you can utilize, you can bleed on the altar by cutting your forearm and just laying that wound over on the altar. Okay. If you're not afraid of some pain, you can, cut your palm and bleed into your chalice. Okay, drinking half the alcoholic beverage, like say when we're working with say Santa Morte. Okay, Santa Morte is one of those beings who are highly demanding. She's a highly demanding deity, okay, of goddess, and depending on which robe she wears, be it the black for protection, death, or whatever, um, you can she likes rum. Okay, rum. All right. So rum would be the choice of alcohol that you would offer her. Okay. To the ugan, you'd be using cigar smoke. You'd be utilizing whiskey. Okay, or tequila. Mexican tequila is very, very good for the ugan. Also for Santa Muerte as well, not just rum. Personally, I utilize wine, okay, a lot, because I found my practice, especially with the hierarchies, such as working with Asmodeus or Asmodai, Astaroth, Beelzebub, dealing with Luciferage, Zazel, Zeniel, all these hierarchy deities, that wine is something that is more noble. Nobles utilize wine is a way, wine bread. And even in paganism and Wicca, they utilize cakes in wine. Okay, and there's a reason for this. And so when we get into blood sorcery, you can mix your blood in with the wine. So when you're doing a pact or you're doing a ritual, making a deal, aligning yourself with that deity, you can mix your blood in with theirs. So you envision, while you're putting your blood into the wine, which is in your chalice, you're mixing that wine with your blood. Okay, much in the same way as the blood of Christ within the Last Supper. The wine is my blood, the bread is my body. Okay, same exact methods, just different eras, different techniques. Okay, so you would drink half of what was in the chalice, and therefore the rest would be the offering to that specific being. In this case, it would be, my blood is your blood is my blood. We are now one. We are blood brothers. Okay. And this is why, when you look at mythology, you look at history, you'll see why warriors always make that cut on the hand and they bleed into the chalice or the offering bowl. Okay. And then they take turns drinking from it. Vikings used a bowl of water where they put their own snot in it. They would bleed in it, they would spit in it, they would drink it and clean out their mouth, much like we do with toothpaste or um, what do you call that stuff or that liquid that you drink and you slush to kill the bacteria in your mouth. Okay, same exact method. They just sit there and pass it around, and you can see why there was a lot of disease at the time. But they did it because it was ritualistic, and rituals and go back hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, all the way back to the Chaldeans, all the way back to ancient Egyptians mythologies, back into the old worlds, and everybody had their own methods, from human sacrificing to animal sacrificing, blood offerings, to, for example, in voodooism, they will slit the throat of a goat. They will eat or drink the feces of that goat. They'll smear the feces over their face just so they can become a priest or priestess in voodooism. Over in Ethiopia, Malawi, and the Congo regions. Whereas down in, say, for example, South Africa, or South America, rather, into Central America, down into South and North and southern portions of Northern America, they utilize blood sorcery by cutting the heads off the dogs and letting the blood spill over the altar, or the Niegra, the spiritual house where the spirits reside. Okay, this is Palo Mayumbi, voodooism, hoodooism, okay, Quimbanda, okay, um, and they pour the blood over the spiritual house, okay, basically as an offering to the deities, the Lord, the Ugan, and such. Okay, now a career black magician would spill their own blood and give back that way, because it's more personal. It shows these beings, we're serious, we're not afraid of a little pain, but I want to give back to you for you taking the time and all the energy that you expelled to come to me. Okay. So when we talk witchcraft versus Satanism, both of these utilize blood sorcery. Both of these utilize prayers. Both of these utilize spiritual pacts and summonings. But the only difference is whereas we're believing, as a Satanism, you're believing in a physical being, a physical, spiritual, supernatural being, such as a demon, a jinn, an angel, okay, or even a Nephilim, okay. They're dealing with gods and demigods, okay, the spiritual outcome of the elementals, okay. Very similar, but two different practices. Witchcraft is as different from shamanism as shamanism is from all other traditions. So you really have to know what you're talking about, and you have to know the practices. But for you, Scraper, what I would recommend is, if you're comfortable enough with your research that you're ready to do some form of invocation or evocation, some form of ritual to, say, for an example, Belial, or to Bauer, or even to Klonik, as you said, then find out that symbol, find out the sigillium that is unique to that individual that you can connect with, and focus on it. Find out the incense that individual likes, and find out, what can you do to give back to that individual for taking the time to come to you. But if you're going to summon a demon, I would recommend that you not only be prepared, not only physically and emotionally, but also make sure that you have an offering. Make sure you have your questions handy. Don't keep them waiting, because not all spirits are the same. Some are temperamental, some are patient and look at you as a child. Others are more will sit there and smite you just for the sheer pleasure of it, just because you pissed them off. So really make sure that you have these four things, and make sure that you have your questions handy, make sure you have the proper offering. Don't keep them waiting, and always make sure that you are prepared for just about anything. It does. Look at it as a talisman, okay? Um, the the amulet of Klonik, or the sigillium of Klonik, is your personal gateway. It is your personal link to that being. So you want to utilize that amulet, that necklace, as a gateway, a portal. Think of it as a calling card. Like, say, if look at it as an area code within your phone number. Okay. For example, like, say, here in the Bangor area, you have, say, for example, it's all the state of Maine, area code is 207, but then you have different districts, different boroughs, which have different numbers, the three different area code. Like, say, for example, here in the Bangor area, we have 947, 942, 945, 941 even, okay, in some cases. But it all depends on where you are in the region, in the location of that borough. And so that would be your calling card. So, I mean, and that's basically what that is. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Like 204. Okay. Prime example right there. It's numerology. And you really want to, you really want to have something that's associated with that being. So when you call on them, you want to focus your energy and your third eye on it. You want to focus all your energy into it, and to be able to conjure them up. You want to believe that they're going to be coming and communing with you. Now, as I stated, they may not come physically. They may send a messenger first, okay, like a lieutenant, just to say, hey, we get we know that you're trying to get in touch with us. Okay, we know you're trying to contact our master. He's busy, but I'm here. I'm willing to work with you to see what we can do for you in his name or in his honor. Okay. or he'll come himself and start working with you. But not everything is made apparent. So you really want to pay attention to your surroundings. When you ask questions, just kind of look around. Is the candle flickering? Is there any breeze in your altar room? If there's no breeze, there's no oxygen, no airflow, and all of a sudden you got one candle going nuts, pay attention to that candle. Look to see what it's doing. How's it making you feel? Is it flickering towards the right? Or to the left, rather. If it's going to the left, then consider that a yes, I'm here, or a yes to your question. Is it going to the right, then no. Is it just staying there in the center and just dancing for all it's worth, then it's a maybe. Better yet, much like a magic 8 ball, ask again later. Okay. Three spotted triangles. Let me ask you this. Was the tip facing up or was it facing down? If it's pointed up, it is the phallus, meaning the masculine energies of Mars. If it's down, it is the vulva, the representation of the vulva, the female divinity, Diana, Venus. Okay. Okay. Then if it's down, then you're working with the feminine current, otherwise known as the nocturnal energies. Okay. So you're basically working with the lunar aspects. So basically, what you're being shown is not only the female aspects, but also the lunar aspects. You're seeing the vulva. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, you can really delve into this stuff, and geometry plays a huge factor in it, but also astronomy and numerology. So I mean, but also each deity has their own aspects. For an example, Arish Kagal. For an example, Hecate, Frey, Hel, Isis. They're associated with the nocturnal energies, so they'd be associated with Venus, the feminine archetype. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, to be fair. Women like to be first in your life, so you do need to pay attention to them and make them feel loved and wanted, but I also spoil them. I mean, I spoil my son's mother like crazy, and she hates it, but she loves it at the same time. So they're very fickle creatures. Hello, Magic. You want to come up? Come up and say hi. Come on. Come on. There you go, sweet girl. So yeah, you do want to pay attention to what is being shown to you. When I first started getting visions and stuff, I started seeing these weird things that I didn't understand. For an example, the very first vision I ever had was of a black background with gold lettering. It was a square, and you had numbers and letters of the alphabet going down. And every so often, a letter would come down and then shoot out towards me, go back, and then continue on its way. And then a letter would do the same thing. And another one, it was like I was on a kind of like a serpent path. You know what I'm saying? Like a snake way. And what you doing? Come on. Come in. There you go. and then all of a sudden you're seeing a city off in the distance with a road that looks like a serpent. And it's nothing but desert. And then all of a sudden a mushroom cloud like a nuclear bomb went off. A third one was me standing in between in a valley, looking at an oasis that looks like water in between, that kind of glimmering, with 2 hills with 4 rows of trees at the base, and almost like a bubble in the sky with stars in it and the moon. But then the rest was outside of that bubble was black. and the moon was white. It looked like two different, like almost like a planet and the moon, same color, whitish blue, but I couldn't figure it out. But it wasn't until a Bruja actually showed me to, told me to write everything down or to draw it out the way I saw it and take that step back and kind of just look at it. Okay. When in reality, I was being guided to something. It was more of walking by faith, not by sight type thing. And it was actually these spirits and showing me the path of the journey that I was on. So you can see where they lead you, but they give you these little clips at a time so they don't overpower you. And when you look at certain designs, certain images, yeah, it could be the mushroom represents nature, the nature of the beast, so to speak. Um, a skeleton being death, you know, in a burnt car, like a post-apocalyptic, war-torn country type battle, and then you're seeing smoke coming from the buildings, some of the buildings off in the distance, and all of a sudden, is that mankind? Is that saying that mankind's way is self-destructive? Possibly. But are they showing you the path from worldly views into spiritual? The triangle being pointed up or down is the same thing. It's just the outlook of what you're seeing and how you're viewing it. We see it from a humanistic point of view, whereas in the spiritual context, there is so much more to it. You have the number three sides to that triangle, okay? But then you also got 4 sides to it if you make it into a 3D selection, okay? And this could also be associated with the witch's creed, the witch's pyramid, okay? And can also go into the witch's meditation. So you see how a lot of this plays into a lot of different areas, but also into astrology, numerology, and deities as well, be it male or female. Only you can decide what and discern what they're trying to teach you, but you have to understand what the symbols and the sigils and what they're trying to show you. And that's why I always recommend keep a dream journal. Keep a journal, a magical journal. So when you make a contact and whatever you see, kind of just write everything down and then just go back to it, over time. Like if you're doing rituals, like say 2-3 times a day, a week, do those rituals. And if they have similarities, kind of just go back to your notes and you end up remembering more and more and more. And you can actually see how they're showing you, they're guiding you. It's really nothing to be afraid of. It's more of the fact that they want you to be bold. They want you to go forth and become more than what the world wants you to be. Think of it like this. Think of it from like a high school point of view. When you're in high school, you have your friends, the people that you associate with. This is the worldly view. But then you come across bullies, where you have one or two people who are classified as bullies. They're outside the system. They're mischief makers, and they travel outside the circles. Now, these type of people, nobody wants to be around because they're just shunning them. Magicians are the same way. Demons are the same way. Okay? These beings are very popular. They're very, very powerful, but they have a lot to offer you. And they're not going to sit there and waste their time on dabblers. These wannabes that just want to get their toe wet and straddle the world. Well, I'm going to, dabble here, but I'm going to stay a Christian. No, they're not going to do that. But if you're willing to go into it face first, you're willing to do that whole belly smack into the pool effect and go head first, they're willing to work with you and they will lead you down a path that will blow your mind. Okay? So, Well, they say it's for life, but give it a couple of years and they'll go bye-bye. I mean, look at it like this. The Shield, supposed to be the greatest thing for the Authority, and then they broke up. And then they supposedly came back for a little bit and then separated again. Nothing is for life, but if you do make a pact with a demon, like say if you're getting into Satanism and you want to align yourself with those forces, the forces of darkness, then go ahead and do so. That's for life. You are choosing that side. You are choosing to work solely with them. As a demonator, you're choosing solely to work with demons, to align yourself with demons. Okay. As a career black magician, such as myself, a dark sorcerer, I choose to work with many, many different paths. And I work with a lot of beings from demons, angels to jinn, spirits to Loa to the Ugan. And I've learned a lot. And I'm still learning. I'm still growing, even after 28 years. So I mean, if I'm sitting here telling you that I'm still learning, just imagine when you get to be in this path the same amount of years. Look back, take a moment to look back to where everything you've studied, everything that attracted you, what got you into this path. What was it about demonology or angelology that attracted you? Look at how far you've come. It's definitely humbleism. It humbles you because it's like, wow, I can't believe I used to be like this. And here I am being seen as an elder, a teacher, a guide, and then realizing, you know what? I just got into this path working and here I am still learning. Even if I go back to these other paths that I've already learned, that I've already walked and practiced, I'm still getting something out of them. Okay? So magic is the same way. Not that magic. Magical pathways are the same thing. When you're dealing with demons, you're dealing with angels, the jinn, or any kind of supernatural or spiritual being, you're gonna have those times where you're striving forward, and then all of a sudden you come to a brick wall. And you're gonna take 2 steps forward and 10 steps back. You're gonna have the opposition. You're gonna have the enemies. You're gonna have the little witch wars. But only you can discern if you want to get out of the trenches and rise above it. Do you want to stay in the slums and put yourself in a division and live in drama, adversities, and chaos? Or do you want to rise above it and become more? This is the path of a sorcerer, becoming more. A black magician, becoming more, not limiting yourself to one style, form, or tradition. Style, form, or tradition, rather. You want to be able to grow and continue growing, continue to learning. I've studied everything. So far in my career, I've studied necromancy. I've studied vampirism, Satanism, witchcraft, shamanism, druidism. I've studied voodooism and hoodooism. I've practiced, I've walked the path. I've even done Christianity. Okay. I've walked the different paths of denominations within all of these fields. And here I am still going, I'm getting into Palo Mayumbi. I'm getting into Quimbanda. Most recently, I started getting into the Mazarine Cabal system, as a disciple of the Cabal. And over the last 6 months, the more I've studied these 3 systems, the more I want to know more about them. I want to, get in contact with these gods, these old gods, these old, these old spiritual beings, and just continue on learning. So trust me when I tell you that it doesn't matter if you're a neophyte, it doesn't matter if you're a novice, if you're an adept, it doesn't matter if you're an expert. You're constantly anybody who says you can't do this or you can't do that, just kick those assholes to the fucking door because they obviously don't know what they're doing. But then you got those who will sit there and try to limit you. and tell you, you know, you can't do this because if you do this, you will be shunned. Well, guess what? I know people out there that have studied multiple different systems of magic, and they are now today some of the leading wor- world black magicians out there. Okay, they're big time authors. You know, they have their own covens, their own um, blogs. They've got their own orders, temples, and everything. And that's because they didn't stick to one style, tradition, or form. So trust me when I tell you, once you get out of your own way and you start going out there and learning, don't stop. Keep learning, because the day you say you've learned it all, you might as well hang up your ritual wear. You might as well, cut yourself off from the gods themselves, because your magical career is done. You've already made up your mind that you're not going to learn anything else. And trust me, there's so much that we don't know, and there's still so much that we can learn. It's not part-time, it's not sometime, it's a full-time journey. Plain and simple. And you're welcome, Scraper. I hope this has been intellectual. I hope it's been educational. I hope you've learned a lot. Feel free to send me a message if you have questions. If I have an answer for you, I'll give it to you. Otherwise, I'll guide you to material where you can do your own research, because my own students will tell you that I will not do the work for you. I will guide you to the material, but I expect you to do it yourself. And but I will help you out, and I will help you make sense of things, because that's part of my job as a public figure. It is my job as a spiritual guide. It is my job as a minister and an elder. All right. And you're welcome. I want to thank all those who have participated. Feel free to message me. Feel free to, I'm on Facebook and I'm on YouTube. So hope it's been educational. Hope it's been enlightening. Until next time, Stark Sorcerer is out. Have a good one. And until next time.